What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency Podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. My name is Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York, and I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Shawn Fitzgerald, founder of Sound Harbor Insurance in Long Island, New York. Ladies and gentlemen, this show is brought to you by Hawksoft, your family-owned and operated management system serving independent insurance agencies with teams from 1 to 300 plus employees. Bailey, an agent out of Texas, says that they enjoy Hawksoft because their product support team is always there and they're eager to always help. Mr. Fitzgerald, how we doing?
Good, sir. Good, sir. I'm looking forward to this conversation today. I can tell you that.
We got LUIS LEAL in the house today from Texas.
What's going on, gentlemen?
How we doing? How's everything going? How do you do it? LUIS LEAL with Leal Insurance Services. Did I do it or I still butcher it?
That's right. No, you did it justice.
Shawn was all nervous. Shawn was nervous I was going to trip it up. I'm excited for this, man. We got a lot going on in your world that we want to talk about. A lot of good scratch stuff, good scratch conversation. I'm trying to think, LUIS, was it Chicago we had dinner?
I feel like it was,
That was a good time. Chris Langio was there. Jeremy Powers, I think.
Yes.
That was a good crew.
Yeah. Jeremy was there.
Taylor. I think that was, Shawn, that was the trip that you couldn't make, and we took a picture in Photoshop. With no legs. That was before ChatGPT. I'm pretty sure we would have gave you legs if we had ChatGPT. Dude, tell us what's going on, man. How's things in Texas?
You know, it's actually kind of chilly out here today. I don't know how cold it is up there in New York where you guys are at, but I'm wearing long sleeves today, man.
Sore subject for us.
Yeah. Shawn got hammered with a little bit of snow, and all of a sudden he's the snow king because they got one snowstorm now in Long Island, so he knows what to do down there. But he just wants us to feed it for him and tell him he's going to be all right, and that's all we're doing here.
Yeah.
I have no room to talk, man. As soon as we get one iota of snow down here in Texas, the entire world shuts down. So I have no room to give Shawn any hard time.
Nah, Steven can give me a hard time all he wants. He quick funny story. I tell him I'm all like, I have all this anxiety. I'm like, we just got 2 feet. Blah, blah, blah. He texts me and he goes, yeah. We call that a dusting up here. It's like, I'm going to explode right now.
There he is. That's going to be the next episode you'll listen to next week. Shawn's going to be doing an episode while he's shoveling out there. We're finally giving people what they want. LUIS, tell us where you're coming from, your story, all of that. There's some unique stuff that I want to talk about your agency journey, but just take us back to the beginning, and we'll dive into the specifics we want to talk about.
Yeah, man. I've been an agency owner since 2000. Well, so I've been in insurance since 2007. This is my 19th year in insurance. Jesus Christ. Started off at a State Farm agency, working for an agent there as a producer. And then about 2.5 years in, we started having conversations about me eventually going out on my own as a State Farm agent, and had conversations with leadership at State Farm, and the conversation didn't go as I thought it was going to. At the time, I think State Farm was just inundated with State Farm agents in the area in San Antonio, where I'm from, and I didn't want to move anywhere because my entire network was here, and so they said, it's going to take a little while before you can have your own agency. At that point, I think the estimate that they gave me was like 7 years, and I just really wasn't wanting to wait that long. So I went back, had a conversation with the agent that I was working for, who was my uncle, and he said, "Well, what do you want to do?" And I said, I think I'm going to go out on my own. And he completely supported me and was like, let's do it. So I left his office May 31st, 2010. And I opened up Leal Insurance Services in July 31st, 2010. So it took me 60 days to get up and running. And then been an agency owner ever since. So now this is my 16th year as an agent owner. In 23, in April of 2023, I merged my insurance agency with another agency here in town. And spent 2.5 years there running the commercial side of the agency. And then in December of 25, separated from the agency and relaunched my original agency, Leal Insurance Services. And that brings us to today. That's where we're at.
Wow. All right. So yeah, there's a lot there. So you started at State Farm 2 years, and then you opened up your own shop. What made you at the 2 year? I feel like the 2 year mark, in the moment, I'm speaking for myself, 2 years seems fast, right? But I'm curious, like, what was your kind of like aha moment to like, all right, I think this is time. I step out on my own. Were you just like producing like an animal? Was there like a specific thing in the market you saw that you think you could take advantage of? I'm just curious your thoughts on it.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Quite honestly, I always had an entrepreneur spirit, right? So I'm fourth generation entrepreneur. My great grandfather had a grocery store in Seguin, Texas, which is just 45 minutes outside of San Antonio. My grandfather had several businesses. He had a restaurant. He had a barber shop. He had a janitorial service. One of my uncles still owns the janitorial service that my grandfather started way back when. And so now that's second generation. My other uncle, who I mentioned earlier, is a State Farm agent. He's a business owner. He owns his own State Farm agency. And when I went to go and work for him, the appeal was that he would help me to establish myself as my own State Farm agent. Cool. Within a 5-year period, right? So that was always the goal, was for me to go out on my own. I think we both thought that it was going to go a little differently. I thought I was going to stay in the State Farm system, and man, let me tell you, I bled that State Farm red, dude. You could not convince me that there was another carrier out there that even came close to what State Farm had to offer. And so when I had that conversation with leadership, it was disheartening. It was discouraging, but I didn't let it damp the desire to want to own my own business. I took that as a sign to say, hey, you know what, State Farm isn't for me. Let's go explore some other options. And we did that, man. I left, and on good terms, right? And here's the other thing too. I knew that I could do it. So when I was working for my uncle, I was there for 2.5 years, and in that time, we grew his business by 50%.
Wow.
And really, I was the only other producer besides my uncle that was, churning out business. And I didn't even start in insurance working for him. I started selling bank products. At the time, State Farm had a huge bank, doing consumer lending and all that kind of stuff. And that's what I went into because that's where my experience was. But every time that I would pass a insurance referral to one of the producers in the office, they would sit on it. They would sit on it, or they wouldn't. There was no movement on it. And so, I was complaining to my uncle one day, like, hey man, I'm sending all these referrals to you guys, and nobody's doing anything with it. And he said, why don't you get your insurance license, man? I said, yeah, you make a good point. And so that, that was kind of the catalyst to me coming into the insurance space, and kicking ass for 2.5 years at the agency, and then eventually going out on my own.
Go ahead, Shawn.
I was just going to say, before you move on to the next part, was your uncle, when you said you wanted to go the independent route, was he like, how supportive of that was he? Or was he kind of like...
Let me rephrase Shawn's question. Shawn wants to know, how do you successfully leave your uncle's insurance agency on good terms, coming from two guys that didn't do it the other way? Shawn, let's just call it what it is, okay?
Fair point.
Like I said, I think the key factor there is that was always a right? Like,
I think it just froze right when you were about to talk, Lewis.
Oh
That's
no.
funny. That's great. We're leaving that in, by the way. That just completely froze. Okay. Back on track we are.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So I think, I think that was always the plan, right? It was always the plan for me to go out on my own. And I think when the time finally came, he and I sat down and had a real heart to heart. And to be quite honest with you, neither one of us had any experience with the independent side. We didn't know what the independent side was like. We didn't know, he thought, I think initially, that I was never going to be a competitor of his, like a direct competitor of his. I think he thought that I was going to go out and like write a bunch of non-standard business, right? Like, people that had a bunch of tickets and a bunch of accidents, stuff that State Farm didn't want, right? And so he was initially very supportive of me doing that because he didn't think I was going to be a competitor. And then, I quickly saw that there wasn't any real money to be made in an ethical way that I wanted to make money in that non-standard space. And so I had to pivot to, writing more standard and preferred business. And so there was a time where our relationship, kind of broke down a little bit because at some point I was a direct competitor of his, but I think, cooler heads prevailed and we both realized that, there's enough business to go around. And so now we've got a great relationship. As a matter of fact, I talk to him probably on a weekly, if not every other weekly basis. And they're good conversations, sometimes having to do with the business, sometimes not, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's just it was sort of, I think setting the expectation up front was really helpful in that relationship. And then moving forward.
Sounds like communication solves it again. Shucks. Look at that. Here's where I want to hone this into, because I really think this is unique and I think this could provide a lot of value. Is take us back to starting the agency at 2010, and if we can marry that conversation with starting back up in 2025, 2026, because 2010 starting a scratch agency looks a lot different than right now. And correct me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely.
You are taking your book. You took your book when you exited the partnership to go back to Leal Insurance Services, right? So not necessarily scratch again, but now you're still starting things over as your agency owner and, different things. So I think that's going to be such a unique perspective. If you can talk to us about like, hey, what did it look like in 2010 when you were starting out? What does it look like now when you're rebooting, if we'll call it that?
Yeah, so in 2010 when I started, I bootstrapped the entire thing, right? It was a lot of me making a ton of mistakes, hiring the wrong people because I felt there was probably some desperation there. So going from that to getting carriers that weren't a good fit for us, getting too many carrier appointments and they all wanted to be fed. Getting I was in a good spot in terms of like the real estate portion of it. So like I didn't have a super long-term lease. I had a really, really low rent payment when I first got started. I kept those kind of overhead expenses pretty low. But yeah, man, carrier appointments as long as you had a pulse back in 2010, you could easily get a carrier appointment. And so going from that to relaunching in 2026, lots of carriers now are the complete opposite. That they want a big book of business, either that you're coming in with or that you're going to roll over, or you have high minimum premium requirements, right? And so ultimately what I decided when relaunching the agency was to continue to be a part of the network for the agency that I was separating from. And so I stayed as a part of the Integra network, which is a sort of regional network of agents in Texas and kind of like the Gulf states. And that was a little bit easier in the sense that I was able to maintain a lot of my data integrity. I didn't have to, restart from scratch when it came to an agency management system. I did have to rebuild a lot of my CRM. Now, I kept a lot of the stuff that I had brought into the agency, but I still had to rebuild a lot of things. So one thing that's a little bit unique about this whole situation is that when I joined the other group, I went into it with the intention of focusing on commercial insurance. And however, I still had a ton of personal lines business, right? And so when I separated, I brought all of the business with me, the personal lines business and the commercial business that I had written. And so you got to imagine over the last 2.5 years, I haven't spent any time on the personal line side at all. So getting to know carrier appetite, or kind of refreshing myself on carrier appetites, which has changed obviously in the last 2.5 years. But carrier appetites, from that to, how do customers want to be, personal lines customers want to be communicated with? What does the automation look like? How many touch points do we have? So having to rebuild all of those systems, on the personal line side that's taken a lot of my time over the past 2 months, trying to get that going again. So yeah, man, back then in 2010, we didn't really have a CRM. It was a lot of manual follow up. We didn't have a ton of automation built back then. I didn't even start with an AMS system when I started back in 2010. It was really just an Excel spreadsheet. And so yeah, I mean, technology has definitely been my friend this time around. Whereas in 2010, none of these things existed, or at least they weren't readily available like they are now.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, what do you think the second time around starting scratch? What do you think was, and we usually do ask this question in the sense of like, if you were to start all over again, what would you do differently, right? Well, you did the thing.
Yeah.
So what was outside the tech piece? Because obviously I can imagine how that would be a huge difference from 2010 to now. Is there anything else that you were like, all right, now that we're redoing this thing, this is what I'm going to make a point to do differently?
100%. Yeah. So the first thing that I made a decision on right out of the gate was, when I first started in 2010, I was doing everything. I mean, I was doing life insurance, I was doing health insurance, I was doing personal lines, and even, we can even get into the nitty gritty of that, right? But everything from non-standard business to standard business, preferred business, the whole gamut. And slowly but surely, I came to the realization that I couldn't be an expert in any one of those things by doing everything, right? And I really wanted to find a way to add value to the relationship that I had with the customer. And that was another sort of, defining factor, was that if I was doing everything and I had, I had such a high number, a quantity of clients, I couldn't really build true relationships with clients. And so when I relaunched the agency at the beginning of this year, I made it a point to decide for the agency going forward what we wanted to focus on. So as I started in 2010, like I said, I was doing everything, right? Life insurance, health insurance, personal lines, commercial, you name it, anything that I could throw up against the wall and make it stick. That's what we were doing. So now going forward in 2026, my agency is focused on growing the commercial side of the business. Going forward in 2026, I made it a point to focus strictly on commercial insurance and growing that side of the house. and our marketing efforts are focused on that. The content that we're putting out, on social media, on YouTube, all that good stuff is all focused on commercial insurance. So we're very, very hyper focused on commercial insurance. There's probably still going to be some growth on the personal line side, and we've got an excellent team to be able to handle that. But yeah, my focus going forward is to grow the commercial side of the house, and that's one thing that I was very adamant about doing differently as I was restarting.
It makes total sense. I think of, the busier and busier we get, and the more business we write at Sound Harbor, we have our niches, so to speak. Like I love construction on the commercial line side. I love restaurants. And then we do high value stuff on the personal line side. But even those three things, they're all so different. The carriers all change so much. The relationships and discussions you build with all the underwriters are all totally different. So I give you a lot of credit, because that's it sounds easy on paper to do, but that's a hard thing to like set in the sand. Like, all right, I'm only doing this one thing.
Yeah.
Because listen, commercials, its own beast too. Restaurants, between contractors, between whatever your niche is, they're all different. They all have different sub apps. I mean, in construction alone, depending on the trade, it could be a totally different supplemental app, and loss runs needed and all that stuff. Is there Louis, is there a niche on the commercial side you're going after, or like is there any specific thing?
Yeah, for sure. So residential service contractors for us are huge. Cool. We do a ton of business with plumbers, electricians, HVAC contractors, roofing, restoration contractors. So we do a ton of work with contractors.
Love that.
I built out a program with a broker to do tattoo artists and studios. So from quote, bind, issue, streamline the entire process, made it super simple for these guys, because this program is on the ENS side, so it's not like a direct bill to your customer, right? It's still an ENS program, but I was able to work out a very strategic process with a broker to be able to fill out one application instead of 4 different accord, 2 accords, 2 supplementals, all that kind of stuff. Was able to work it out to where we get the quote in, we get a quote back, ace like within an hour typically, and then we turn around, sell that to the customer. The customer buys, and we've got a pretty decent bind ratio on that as well, which I love. And then another program that I've created with a broker as well is a program for insurance agents. So we do agents errors and omission coverage. And so same thing, built out a process to be able to quote, bind, and issue those things within a really short period of time. We're super competitive, got some great rates for those customers, and also great coverage. And so one of the things about that is the agents that I'm writing this E&O with, they focus primarily on personal lines. And so what I've told them is, hey, because I'm focused on commercial insurance, if you guys ever run into a situation where you need help on a commercial lines account, let's work together on it. I'm glad to split commission with you on these accounts. And man, to be quite honest with you, I've written a lot of business that way.
That's awesome.
So just because you have one niche doesn't mean that you're limited, that you're limiting yourself to that particular area. It's going to open doors to do some other stuff.
For sure.
That's been super helpful.
That's awesome. I'm glad you brought up the construction thing, because I am so bullish on the construction industry, specifically just because of like everything going on with AI and automation and technology right now. like, think about it. That's one thing, unless like robots, start really becoming a thing. Like those industries, I heard somebody say it a little extreme, but it's like basically that like people within the construction space, like specialty trade contractors, are going to like replace bankers in a sense. Like they're going to become the ultra wealthy because people are still going to need them for the work they do. And not as many people are in that industry as, financial,
Yeah.
banking, investing, stuff like that. So I just thought it was an interesting piece. But I think, yeah, I love the construction space, and like it's got the premium, it's got the accounts, it's got several different lines of business.
Yeah, and
It's a great space to be in.
even for sure, and even in that, right? Our marketing efforts are not focused on new ventures, right? Because those tend to be a little more service heavy.
Lots of
So
turnaround too.
yeah, exactly. And so we even have, we built out an ideal client profile, and this is super important, I think, for agents that are getting started. Is really know figure out what your niche is, and then figure out what an ideal client looks like within that niche.
Exactly. Yeah, that's huge.
And so we built an ideal client profile. So the way that our process works is we have a pre-qualification that we do with a customer, and if we feel like we're not going to be a good fit, we'll tell the customer up front, like, "Hey, listen, appreciate the opportunity to want to do business with us, but I just don't think that we're set up to be able to give you the service that you need. And I think it's best you find somebody else." I'm not afraid to tell them that. Now, I understand I'm in a bit of a unique situation in the sense that I've got a book of business that helps support me in that, right? Not every scratch agent is gonna be able to do that, but it allows us to focus our efforts on the actual client that we want to bring in.
Yeah.
And so, $1 million in revenue, at least 4 employees, at least two vehicles, multi-line customer, right? Like that's the ideal client profile that we have and that we're driving our marketing efforts to.
So, question on that: you get somebody that has 4 employees. Let's say you get someone that has 2 vehicles but no employees. You're completely turning it away because it's not set to.
No.
Are you? But
No.
you're just saying this is what we want to go after. So those aren't necessarily pre-qualification questions of qualifying them out. There's different ones in there. You're just saying this is where we can do very well, and this is what we're going after.
Correct. Yeah. We're not turning away business to just because somebody doesn't have 4 employees. We're not going to say no, we don't want to help you. Right. What we're going to do is the pre-qualification is more to find out where they are in their entrepreneurial journey. Are they just getting started, or have they been in business for a while and ready to take the next step? Do they have an insurance program that they're looking to replace? Like those are the kinds of things that we're looking at in the pre-qualification process. Once we get them through pre-qualification, then we'll move them over to discovery, and that's where we get into the nitty-gritty. That's where we find out, everything about their operation, their current insurance program that we're going to be replacing, that kind of thing. And then what their expectations are, right? Like if their expectations are that, we're going to, get them a certificate, within 5 minutes of the phone call, hey, listen, that's just unrealistic. I don't know of anybody that's going to be able to do that for you. Especially if there's special wording involved and all that kind of stuff. And as long as we taper expectations to something more reasonable, we can move forward.
So, Luis, are you saying that I shouldn't quote the person that emailed me this morning that said that they needed workers' comp and won't tell me what type of business they run? Is that what
I think you should absolutely quote that.
Okay. And they have no employees, but they just need it for a job.
Yeah. I don't feel comfortable telling you that. Okay. All right.
State Fund, NYSIF.com.
Well, I mean, I don't know if this was the right thing or not, but I gave them the Sound Harbor Insurance. They're guys down in Long Island area, New York. I gave them their number. I told them, call Shawn. He specializes in workers' comp without a class code.
Thanks.
And he'd be more than happy to
send them the right degree.
Nice referral.
I love how you guys support each other that way.
Yeah. Hey, it's the least I could do, You get poor guys been shoveling for days down there. Yeah. Hey, Luis, thanks for joining us, man. We got to wrap this up.
Yeah,
I'm just
that
super
was
excited to watch the rebirth here of Leal Insurance Services, and super happy for you and excited to watch the journey. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to pick your brain or follow along, watch some of the great content you're putting out? What's the best place?
And I'm all over social media. I'm on TikTok. Luis Leal 5. Or no, Luis Leal SA5 is my TikTok. Luis Leal SA on Instagram. Same for Facebook. Luis Leal on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place, man. Feel free to look me up and connect with me anyway you can find me.
Awesome. Appreciate you spending some time with us today. Everybody, that's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. And most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.